sorry, the recording was off, so sorry to the ones who are viewing the recording only. We have just basically covered the ordering principle, keeping it lean and maintaining the server in a clear structure. And now let's turn to the file, to the next slide, Wesley. And this is about the file names. So a clear naming of documents is helpful in improving their accessibility. When you see a document on a server, you should not have to click onto every single document to know what's inside. I sometimes see documents that have very random names, that have maybe just the name of the author, that have maybe just whatever word gave you as a suggestion, or that have some figures. And to me, then it's not clear about what's inside this document. So finding a clear naming structure as an organization can make it very easy to know what type of document is it. And there are different ways, once again, and I think we have stressed this throughout. Knowledge management is what you, or how you define it, what your organization needs. So with the names, is once again, what do you need to know when you look at your server or your central storage? So one suggestion could be you have type of document, underscore, author name, underscore, date of last change. So here we could have report, underscore, Petra, underscore, 2011-20. So date of last change, when you put date, you don't write 20th November and you spell out November. You take the numbers. And that is because it depends also on the naming is connected to how your computer will list the things for you. So whatever comes first is also what the computer will use, depending on how you structure it, to list your things. So reports would then be with reports. And the same goes then with the author. The ones of the same author would be together there. And then also of the date. So that's the structure it takes. It starts with the first and then goes through to the last. And you might not always need all of this. You might not always need to know who was the author of the document. You might not always need to know when it was created or when it was last changed. So it really depends what kind of document is it, and maybe also who else is working on it. If you have an annual report, it would be very helpful to know that it was 2019 and not 2020. The same, if you're working still on the document, it could be important to know that Maureen was working on the report yesterday, and that this should then be the last version of it. So all these things can be transmitted through the name of the document. So it's a very powerful tool and something that is really underused. Then finally, another thing to consider when you set up a central place or when you think through your documentation is the backup of your data. I've mentioned this before, that with the central storage it can become easier, but nevertheless, even if everybody works on their own device, backup is crucial. And I'm guessing not everybody is doing it because it's sometimes cumbersome to go through. So it's very important when you think of how we're doing our documentation to put backup in your mind, because it's one of the common causes of data loss, because either your laptop crashes or it gets stolen or whatever. So data loss as such can be prevented by you having a mirror or a copy of all your documents or all your relevant documents on a separate hard drive. It is not a backup if you have created a duplicate folder on your own hard drive, on your own computer. It has to be separate. And at least you should have one backup of all your documents on a separate hard drive. As an organization, it can make sense to also have a backup of the backup, because maybe even your backup hard drive might crash. And it sounds like this can never happen, but it actually almost happened to me that my computer had a problem and my hard drive had a problem at the same time. So I had to get another hard drive to make sure that I don't lose all my data. And then one final thing about backups that I would suggest is to find automated solutions. We can leave it to people to do the backup, but people are prone to forget those things. And if you have an automated solution, the software will do it for you. You tell the software what to do, what to back up at what time, and the software will do it as long as the computer and the hard drive are on and are connected. And most times hard drives already come with such a software. So it's not even an extra cost that you would have to incur. So it's very crucial because we can blame, it doesn't help to blame it maybe on the laziness of staff or that they're forgetting, because it's something that you already know will happen. If you think staff will back up just because you tell them, I don't think they will. So the experience is that you need to find that staff might forget, even the most diligent ones might forget from time to time, and that one particular time can be the time when now the computer crashes. So automated solutions are really helpful in avoiding that. Now let's go to the next slide, please, Leslie. So this one was actually already a request, and it's also leading us over to the next section of how do you document for sharing. And I will not go in this too much, but what I want to point out is, once again, who is your audience? So who are you actually documenting this for? Who do you want to share this with? And then think about how best can you reach this particular audience? And you have so many options available. You have maybe a website, you have blog posts, you can print posters or brochures. Okay, I think the network is bad. Sorry about that, I'm just seeing this now. I'm sorry, I will keep going, and hopefully then the recording can substitute for what maybe you haven't heard. As usual, I'll also share the slides. Yeah. So the options is the mic on. Can we see which mic is on? Is this mic? Let's see which. Can you help me click on the arrow?
This one. This
Yeah.
one.
And then, okay, go to the conference.
Annika, she meant that you should get closer to your microphone, so maybe people can hear you better then.
This one.
Yeah, we're trying to make it to the one that we used before, which I think was fine.
Which one?
I understood that I have to get closer to the microphone, but we are just trying to see which one we are using. So maybe let's canceling. Yeah.
Let me just take over and tell you the.
How is it going now? Can you hear me clearer?
Yeah.
Is it fine now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. So yes. So how do you do the sharing of things that you have documented? So keep in mind your audience and how you can reach them. Whether it's on your website, it's on your blog, it's through a poster, a leaflet, or through social media posts, maybe a photo story, a video documentary, or even radio shows. So all of these different options have specific requirements. So if you want to use a photo story, you should have pictures that really transmit what you want to say. You should have meaningful pictures. If it's a video, think through how you want to tell your story with the video images. And then if you want to use social media, if you want to use Twitter, Twitter has specific requirements as to how long the tweets can be. So the shorter, the better. And then in general on social media engagement, I'd also like to point out that you need to find a consistent way of how you want to do the engagement. So think of it that you wanting to share as one side of the deal, but the other side is someone who is willing to learn from you, to receive what you are sharing. And that means you have to gain the attention, you have to win someone over to listen to you and to believe that you have something interesting to say. And that is by creating a relationship with your audience. And one of the things to keep in mind is how often you do that. Think of the frequency. Would you buy a newspaper that comes out tomorrow, then maybe it comes out after another month, then it comes out twice a day, and then it doesn't come for a whole year? Would you trust to buy that newspaper? You probably get disappointed with it, and then you don't consume it again. So if you have a Facebook site, or if you have an Instagram, or even your own website, and on one day you bring out 5 new posts and then you stay silent for another 3 months, that might not be the best way to really engage an audience and keep them interested in what you are doing. So when you do the sharing, think of how also you want to do this systematically. So that you don't have an unplanned haphazard engagement that will only be from time to time. All right, let's move to the next slide. So this was it from on the documentation. I'm sorry that some of you really struggled to hear or to see. Let's take some questions to see maybe what I should come back on, or what you need to know. Okay, so the first one is on the NAS, the network attached storage, or the server and the cloud. Okay, so for the network attached storage, it's basically another hard drive, as far as I understand it. And once again said, I'm not an IT expert, so please also cross-check with maybe an IT expert. But a NAS can be accessed by different users, and you have that file server. So you have sort of what that Explorer you have on your computer, you can have it on this central storage, and many people can access it. But it can do less than a server can do. So that's to keep in mind. But it is cheaper than a server usually. And yeah, you can also have the remote access. So it is limited in the terms of how many users can do it. So for small organizations, it can work. If you are a very big organization, like for Horizon, for instance, this would not really work. So that really depends for you to talk with an IT expert. Also, what solutions do they have? Sometimes maybe they don't have all the solutions, and they can't provide you support for all the solutions. And unless you have IT experts within your organization who really know their turf, then go with what you can easily find someone to help you troubleshoot. There's no use having a very sophisticated system if then in your location you don't have anyone that can help you in case there's a problem with it. Then there's a question as to what I meant with the backup of all documents. So backing up basically means you create a duplicate of all your documents on your computer. So you have your documents on your computer, but something can happen with your computer. So you will take another hard drive, and a hard drive is like a flash basically, but bigger, very much bigger in size, and usually also a bit more stable. So you have that hard drive, and you can buy them. They're not even very expensive, depending on, of course, how big you need. So you need to look at your computer, how much data do I have on it, and how much do the other staff maybe have on it. If you just want to do it computer per computer, you can buy one hard drive for every computer. And then most of them actually come with a software that you can set up once. If you don't know, you get an IT expert to help you set it up. And then that, whenever you connect that bigger flash to your computer, it will back up whatever you have. Backing up meaning it will duplicate what you have on your computer somewhere else. Meaning if anything happens to your computer, you have all your files still on the other one. I hope that one was clearer. Do we have other questions? Other things that you didn't hear clearly because the microphone was far away, that maybe I should go back into? You can also...
There was one question, but that is already another topic, so general question and answer to go into. So on the documentation side, I didn't see any in the chat. I wanted to, let me put the video. I wanted to briefly go into what you've mentioned on the naming of the files and giving it a structure to maintain the maintenance part of all this documentation. And that one, what you mentioned, the data day, we copied that from DKA, Austria, they do that. And I'll actually have to remind our new colleague, Stefan, who is in charge for IT, to continue doing that, because I found that as a user, as a person, I need to document, I need to also delete every now and then things, and checking if I, like in my emails, all the different parts, I document them correctly. So it helped me and our teams to reserve and say, okay, this one day we are dedicating to our documentation and storage, and we can ask questions, we can help ourselves with other colleagues. So is everything clear? What can we delete already? What is not yet to be deleted, etc. So there is a lot of questions that normally come into colleagues' mind, and giving it a day, giving it a structure, knowing that that's the place and the space to do that is helping colleagues normally. And the naming of documents, I can tell you from my experience at KNOW-HOW3000 internet platform, we decided already quite some time ago that we have a clear naming policy, like all the documents uploaded have a clear structure of country, language, and etc. So you can check that up. And it takes some time to get used to using this new naming, but it helps really a lot. It's so useful, and I realized and I use it again now for all the personal things and the other storage on documents as well, because it is really user friendly if you have the same naming and you know which language is the document, which year, and etc. So this is again a kind of marketing to those who might think, oh no, we're a small organization, no, we don't need the naming, like all the documents all the same. I can personally tell you it is really helping you as a user and also as an author in the long run. There is now questions popping up, Annika.
Yes, I see. So there's one of how do you avoid staff not storing files into the common server? So that's of course an issue that sometimes we find there is a central storage, but then people don't actually use it. So there can be really many reasons why this is not happening. And before we look at, okay, it's on the staff side, maybe let's first see are all the requirements there that make it easy for staff and make it interesting for staff to also use the server. So one thing that also at the regional office we looked at, so is the server always accessible? Do you have times when the server goes off and then staff can't access it? Because if that happens once or twice when someone needs the server and is not accessible, the person will be less and less interested in using that server because, well, I mean, it's never accessible anyway. Then another thing, how fast is your server? If I take ages to upload my documents on the server, well, I will skip it at some point and then I will keep forgetting it. So your technical setups should be in a way that it becomes very easy for everyone to use it. Then coming to the storing, having a clear structure can make it very easy for someone to navigate. If you have a server where there's no clear structure and I always have to struggle to find my way through it and I maybe have to click through 15 different folders to find the one I need, I will also get frustrated using it. And I will say, let me just use my own computer. And even when maybe they want to access information from another staff, they will go to that staff directly instead of using the server. So those are things that you can look at. Are they really user-friendly? Are they helping the staff to do that? And then it's really also a question of creating that, that culture of using the server. If all the requirements are set, if you have a nice structure, if the technical requirements are there, then of course it's also getting into the habit of working on the server. So you can make people work directly on the server so that they don't have to use their computer anymore. And it's something you have to train people in, you have to bring it to them when they're already on board in your organization and during the onboarding. During the onboarding, that's something maybe you skip, but it's something that you best include, where you say, okay, this is how we save documents, this is how we name documents, this is the structure that we use, and this is where you work. You don't work on your computer, you work on the server. But once again, you need that the technical setup to be in a way that this actually works. So it has to be in line with how you do things. And then I think it's also maybe a matter of staff realizing that if they need a document, they can find it on the server and they don't have to wait for the colleague to come back from holiday, but they can access it. So I think there are also those success or those cheerful moments when you get an information really quickly and then you see the value of it. So I think technical requirements one side and then showing the value of having the central storage is also on the other side. Let's look at some more of the questions.
I want to add one thing to that question, Annika, when it comes to how to avoid staff not storing it. At Horizon 3000, we have the clear structure that there is one person in charge to controlling and checking if the team colleagues are really, using it and storing it where they should. So when we set up the structure of where colleagues should store and document the things and save them, it was also clear mentioned whose responsibility is it to actually check every now and then, and that is not meaning daily, but every now and then it is one person that is, for me, for the knowledge management team, I'm in charge to check, are the documents there, are people using it, can they use it, is there barriers to use it, technical or any other barriers. So make the responsibility clear in the role, because just setting it up and then hoping that they will use it is not it's not always working, because also your colleagues need to know to whom shall I go if I have the third time problems to access the server, whom shall I inform, so there needs to be a clear responsibility.
Yes, most definitely. That can definitely help, because we all know we get busy and we might forget something to upload or whatever. So to have someone that checks in and says, okay, maybe there's something that you want to put up, can be very helpful to just have that person in charge. There was also another question as to how long you store the documents. Well, ideally, how long do you want to work as an organization? If you want to work as an organization for 3 years, then maybe your timeline is 3 years. But if I'm assuming all of you want to be there for longer, and then your storage should be for that period. So if you can't foresee how long, then as long as there is really. So the storage doesn't have an end date, as in your whole documentation should be there as long as you are there. It can be that maybe certain documents, if we talk of accountability, have a timeline that maybe after 15 years you don't need the phone receipts anymore, the airtime receipts. So then you can delete those data that are clearly outdated, right? And there should be, for instance, from the donors, there should be a clear statement as in, we need to see this for this and this many years. Your state will also have requirements for the taxes you pay and say, okay, maybe we need those information for 10 years. And then, okay, at this point, maybe we don't really need it in the day-to-day running anymore. If you feel you can put them still on another hard drive, but otherwise you can look at what are the documents that really there's no news for us anymore. Or maybe if you have created the final version of a report, you can consider, do we need all the versions in between? Is there any value in keeping the 15 versions we had in between? If you see a clear value of keeping them, and here we are again in selecting what you document, you can keep them. But if what you're really interested in is the final document, then you can delete the rest. But the overall documentation should be as long as your organization or your organization's life. Let's see, I hope that was answering the question. Petra, always feel free to chime in if you have something.
You answered correctly. It really depends also on the rules of different donors and organizations for the projects, like how long you need to store different documentation. And based on these regulations from the state side, your very local ones to the donors, to your internal one, you decide if there is room, space to get rid of certain documents or not, and when and how to delete. But it needs to be clear. If there is no clear guidance of when people can actually delete or not, or what to store, how long, it can be quite chaotic in the jungle, and you cannot make sure that documents stay there.
Yes, so exactly. And so there was another question as to what's more effective, storing in hard copy or soft copy, or to use both.